9:30. We're live. I'll call the meeting to order. It's 9:30 a.m. We'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Start with administration. Any additions, deletions?
Yes, sir.
Go to council. Additions, deletions. Not seeing any. If I could get a motion then to accept. Councilor Whitten.
Yeah, I move the council adopt the March 12th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question on that. All in favor? That's moved. Takes us 4.1, 2025 past minutes adoption. We have a few different ones here, starting with November 27th, 2025. Any discussion on those minutes? Councillor Kulkin?
Yeah, I'll move that council adopt the minutes of special council meeting held on November 27th, 2025 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? And that's moved. Motion 2 for December 4th, 2025. Move the minutes as presented. Anything there? Seeing Councillor Wright.
I'll just make the motion that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on December 4th, 2025 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Next one, December 12th, 2025. Councillor St. Martin.
I'll move that council adopt the minutes of the special council meeting held on December 12th, 2025 as presented.
Councillor, call that question. All in favor? Those are moved. And last one in this string here is for December 18th. Councillor McNeil.
And I'll motion the council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on December 18th, 2025 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Call that question. All in favor? And that's moved. 4.2, February 26th, council or regular council meeting minutes. Anything there? Council? Not seeing any. Councillor Wright.
I'll move that council adopt the regular council meeting minutes of February 26th, 2026 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that. Councillor McNeil.
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay. I'll call the question then. All in favor? And that's carried.
It's okay, I missed one, so.
So delegation at 10:30. It's not quite there yet. Now we're away. Let's move to 7.1 policy F5.209 tangible capital asset policy.
Thank you very much, the Chair, members of council, good morning. Before you is the policy F5-509. Now this policy has already gone through GNP, and there were two questions that were raised that we've addressed at the bottom of the schedule, and that is the only addition outside what was discussed by council at that time. I think two questions were raised. Number one was the slope stabilization, whether we can capitalize that one or not. And then the second question was on the timber, whether we can also capitalize timber as well. And we did some research behind the scenes, and I think based on what information we established, I did put at the end of the schedule, if you go to the bottom of that schedule, I added the slope and timber as well. So if you go through the schedule, at the end of the schedule, those are the only two additional items that have been added based on what was discussed by council. So if you go to the policy itself and then you go to the schedule at the bottom of the schedule,
Page 17 of the policy.
Yeah, page 17.
Page 14 of the policy, page 73 of 1074, if you look at it that way.
Oh, I'm on 1062, so I'm.
Okay, Council, everybody's found it?
If it pleases, I can read it if it's easier for council to find.
at the bottom, if you keep on going, I think there are only two items under cultural and historical assets. I did add the slope stabilization and the timber, and I think those are the only two items they as requested by council. And I think I also discussed this with the province as well, because I also wanted to find out how they deal with some of those things. And it becomes very technical, especially when, depending on what is done on those particular roads, for it to be capitalized, and it can be based on what they do. So it's at that point when it will be decided whether it's repairs and maintenance or we need to capitalize, depending on what they do to the road. So that's why we have that statement. And then on the timber side, again, this may also be capitalized where Woodlands County owns and has clear control over the asset. So we have those options there. So that's why I made those two statements. And I think those are the only additions to the policy based on the request from council.
Questions from council? Councilor Dean?
Yeah, I have no questions. I'd be prepared to make the first motion that council rescind policy 1516 tangible capital asset policy.
Councilor, speaking to the first motion? Okay. Not seeing any, I'll call that question, all in favor? It's moved, and then motion 2 on the new policy, Councilor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeves, through to council and administration. I don't believe this council has the authority to approve it retroactive to January 1st, 2025. This council took its oath, official oath, and per section 156 of the MGA, this council can only make decisions within our authority. So I believe it can be retroactive to October, but not all the way back to January.
Mr. Ferris?
Through the chair to Councilor St. Martin, I would agree with that assessment. Only caveat to that is the auditors are okay with that motion. It may cause some problems overall with our audit. I would agree with that sentiment. We shouldn't be able to change a decision from a municipality before yourselves. But from a support point of view from the auditors, they did encourage that. The one thing I think to note that without doing it this way, we still may be further off our indicators than hope, but going forward we'll definitely be hitting them better than we have historically. So it's a win regardless, but I would agree with Councillor St. Martin's sentiment, regardless of what the auditor says.
Councilor St. Martin?
I'd be willing to pass the motion that council adopt policy F-5.209 tangible capital asset policy as presented with an effective date retroactive to October 2025 to permit capitalization of 2025 assets in accordance with the new Schedule A.
Councilor Dean?
Would you accept a friendly amendment to say as amended? Is that required?
Councilor St. Martin?
Mr. Reeves, through to Councillor Dean, I believe we have the policy in its clean format. So we don't have to say as amended.
Okay, all good.
Any discussion on Councilor St. Martin's motion? Not seeing any. Just one question for administration. We're doing retroactive as October 2025. Do we need a date, or are we gonna go October 1st, or just looking for clarification from Councilor St. Martin? Any intent?
28th, the first day.
Mr. Reeves, through to council, I don't know the date that we signed our official oaths. I believe was towards the end of October, but
Just as
It was the 28th.
as a friendly amendment, instead of October, would November 1st be?
I would accept that.
So motion on the floor then amended to reflect November 1st, 2025. Any further discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? It's carried. 7.2, policy F-5.208, acceptance of donations and donated assets.
Your request on this item was also brought forward to GMP for discussion. The committee had asked for a couple amendments. One in relation to clarification on authorization by council, the addition of bequests as a donation, the addition of a charity clause. If someone was to require a charity receipt, that it by default come to council. I believe the intent of that one was to ensure that we are in compliance with the donation regulations with the CRA, to ensure that it was There was also recommended change to reduce the threshold from $35,000 to $1,000 for the CAO to just accept, so anything over $1,000 would now need to come to council. There was also an addition as part of the discussion where yes, the CAO is authorized to only accept up to $1,000, but it would probably be overly bureaucratic and problematic if a company just wanted to donate money unconditionally to our organization for a cause. If there's no conditions, the CAO can accept it as long as he or she reports it to council. So that discussion did occur as well. And allowing for the acceptance of leased assets from the fire departments was also a request that was told to be imported. And then we also reverted the section on declining donations to provide greater clarity on if we're going to decline having some involvement with council. In all, I think administration is happy with the changes. The two concerns still with the amended version. The $1,000 threshold, it's appropriate, but with the additional triggers, there may be an increase in things being brought to council. Administratively, last year, for example, we received a $2,000 donation in relation to fire services. That one would be addressed here if it was just a cash donation with no conditions. But the various amounts could change. I do think mitigating it with the just general acceptance of cash donations will reduce that threshold. But it is $1,000 is a lot of money, but in the same way, when it comes to donations, it can be a little bit small. But overall, we think the policy is the first step to clarifying our donation issues. And further to that, we do have a draft procedure to ensure that this is consistently followed and reported, but more importantly, we track the intent of these donations so that we never run into the issues that we've had in the past, and we're just more efficient as a result.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, through the chair to council, I guess. Policy could be changed at the next meeting, so in the good fortune that we're receiving daily donations, then maybe we could change things then. So I would be prepared to move that council adopt policy F-5.208 being the acceptance of donations and donated assets policy as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Okay, moving along here to new business 8.1 Lacombe Research and Development Center closure.
Good morning, council. Ms. Horton is away at a conference, so I'll attempt to do her RFD here. So we have received a letter from Lacombe County just requesting support in respect to the closure of the Lacombe Research and Development Center. This has resulted as the federal government looking at downsizing some of their federal workforce. How it impacts Woodlands County, the closure of that particular facility would be that the research that's produced at that particular facility includes livestock and meat production, crop science and crop protection, disease resistance, production efficiency, and genetics. Many of these findings, of course, that occur at this particular facility are kind of mixed farming systems, which is kind of conducive to what Woodlands County, a lot of our producers, you'll typically find here. As well, information producers rely on indirectly through provincial extension programs, producer groups, and commodity organizations. Even agricultural conferences and publications, so that information wouldn't be coming forth to necessarily through without that facility. There will still be two facilities within Alberta, which is Beaver Lodge and Lethbridge. However, the central area would kind of be left out of that. And there are differences, of course, in your climates and things that occur, different farming practices in that. As well as municipalities and industry groups note that the center's research has benefited central Alberta, but also all across Western Canada. So just looking for council's support in providing a letter to the Minister of Agriculture in Ottawa. There is a letter attached, or if council chooses, you can just accept the report as information.
Mr. Baker, Councillor Kuchen and Councillor St. Martin.
Yeah, this through the chair to council, this came up at the Ag Services Board this year. And after I read some of the things and having done work with Lacombe, it's interesting that the federal government now is choosing to download some of the things onto the provinces. And the problem that we've had in agriculture is that even the provinces neglected the extension work that is really important for agriculture in general. And a lot of those services have been taken up by organizations like Grow and Farming Forward. And the problem with it is that it's diluted. So, we're getting into a place now where agriculture is evolving quite interestingly into a different space where a lot of that research is necessary. And yet the political powers who have over a long period of time distanced themselves virtually culturally from agriculture are not seeing the value in that as much as the agriculture community does. So I am completely in support of trying to figure out how we lobby the federal government not to reduce those services because they are important.
Yeah. Councillor St. Martin.
Mr. Reeve, Councillor Kuchen answered my questions, thank you.
I do, we'll say kind of chiming off what Councillor Kuchen said, overall in Canada, we have some of the highest standards when it comes to agriculture, and the testing and research and stuff that's done in the background helps ensure that what we have is top tier and viable. So I would be in support of moving this letter. Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, just to respond to that, you're 100% right. And what we're starting to see now in agriculture is that it's a top-down enforcement issue on food safety and other things which are absolutely not relevant. And so as you dilute the bottom end part of it, the top end starts to do some of the things that become counterproductive. So you're 100% right.
Councillor McNeil?
Through to council, I have a question. I'd noticed that Alberta Munis had put forward a resolution, I believe, for this matter. And I was wondering if we know if our Pembina zone or if RMA was looking at the same.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Councillor Dean?
Just a question clarifying, you said that AB Munis was
I believe so,
really, okay,
so.
that's great.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Could we take that up with them at RMA? See whether there has been that?
Yeah, I would think so.
Looking through the resolutions, I don't recall seeing it or something on this at this session, unless I might have missed something. I'm just looking for council's input
Yeah, I hadn't seen anything either.
and if it's pushed here and through, there is the chance that Lacombe County may have an emerging resolution show up also, so we'll find that out, I guess, next week.
Okay.
With that, if anyone wants to make a motion in support of the support letter, Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, I'll move that we direct administration to forward the attached letter of support to the Honourable Heath McDonald, Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, urging reconsideration of the decision to close the Lacombe Research and Development Center.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on Councillor's motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. 8.2, support letters to expedite regulatory approvals for disaster recovery program, the DRP.
So this item is before you, I'd like to call it an emerging item that occurred at the Emergency Management Agency. While not formally a direction, there was a discussion in relation to DRPs and their update process, and so some information was requested. Just within those discussions, the thought process was we have timelines in relation to our funding. We spent last year, I don't wanna say debating with the province, we'll say collaborating with the province to come up with a process that ensured the repair work we would do reflected what our community needed. The province are quite sticklers on you get what you had, you can't oversize or upgrade it beyond that when it comes to the funding. We did a lot of advocacy over that first 6 months of last year to get them to understand the true scope, because the original scope they gave us was significantly smaller. We then spent the next 6 months building the engineering packages and tender packages to get that to go out. Now, with that though, also comes a bunch of provincial and federal approvals. Within your package, you can see the various dates on when documentation was submitted, mostly in January and February. Some of it beforehand, but we've also gotten requests to review that we submitted in December of 2025. And so administratively, the thought process was some of these can take 3 to 6 months for approvals. We recognize and understand how as administrators ourselves, things take time and process and respect that within reason. But with the timelines that we have coming up in the fall of 2026, that is a problem when it comes to tendering. We do not want to tender these projects as they are right now because of the liability and legal risk of tendering a project that we may not do if we don't get approvals. But also the added cost of potential last minute scope changes very late into the year will only add to the increased costs, and that's problematic. So within those discussions, ultimately, I did offer that if perhaps council thought necessary, perhaps we start the advocacy. You all have a lot of great connections and interplay both provincially and federally, and using the force of council as a whole to help get us further ahead based on the public good and the need of these projects as a governance body. So based on that, we are requesting that you direct us to prepare and send letters under the signature of the Reeve to the MLA, local provincial ministers, the Member of Parliament, federal ministers, that are all related to these different applications in the hope that we can expedite them. And it was a significant list of individuals because some of these have overlap with infrastructure and environment. We're also of the opinion that some of them would potentially flag under red tape reduction. And so just sending them to everyone to get people talking about it on top of the meetings that we have with ministers coming up in the next couple weeks, I think would help push it to the top of the pile potentially.
If I can just, if council approves this, if administration and a request that I got from one of our MLAs could email instead of send physical copies in the mail. They said they're finding when things are hitting the mail, sometimes it gets lost or the time in which they're receiving them are I guess not in a short amount of time. So I just, if we're gonna do this, I would just recommend that avenue to make sure that they have it in a short order. Open this up for discussion. Councillor McNeil.
Thank you. Through the reeve to administration. I do have some questions and I guess some background for council that wasn't in the RFD. I went back to our July 16th, 2025 meeting, and which, if I recall correctly, I think it was there in person, but when I went back to the package, the infrastructure director had brought it forward and there was a motion out of that meeting that the project was going forward. So I guess when I first saw some of these timelines from between July 19th and December 19th, I guess my question is what transpired between like that 5 months from it being approved in July? Why was there a 5-month delay before the request would have gone out, like the beginning of these permit requests?
So that 5 months included tender development. These tenders are ready to go as well. But once we had the design, we then had to figure out which formal approvals, because the original version of the DRP was significantly inferior to the level of improvements that we wanted to advocate for. Based on the previous discussions with the last director, they were able to successfully advocate that things the province was excluding should be included, and they had additional approval requirements. And so that 5 or 6 month period was developing the tenders, but also developing the applications, because some of those applications can be overly complicated, and we have farmed these out, so.
Councillor Dean, back to Councillor McNeil.
Yeah, through the chair to council and administration, you know, the fact that the DRP has deadlines is a little different than other situations that don't necessarily have a deadline. Like, you know, when you repave a section of road, you apply for funding, maybe it's STIP funding, maybe it falls in a different bucket, but they don't have those type of restrictions. And we're dealing with the river. So I would hope that municipal affairs understands there's a difference between this type of application and a regular funding request that doesn't have the same restrictive things. As I'd mentioned in that email, you know, let's hope that Sarah doesn't become a part of this discussion, because we could be looking at 10 years, you know, so I doubt it is, but when we advocate to the minister, as Mr. Ferris mentioned, you know, this really, in my opinion, needs to be our number one point.
Councillor McNeil and Councillor St. Martin.
Thanks. And I guess just a few comments on this. Like, number one, I'm super concerned, of course, about losing $1.6 million in funding, you know, for a project that we can't afford to do on our own. So that's, hopefully we'll be able to successfully advocate and not lose it before the November 26th deadline that was mentioned in the July 2025 meeting package. Additionally, I guess going forward, I would ask and hope with administration is that if there ever is something like this, that we're dealing with these kind of timelines, that it be expedited right from the get-go and be on a very high priority list ahead of some of the others, because, you know, it's certainly something that if it had come to council and had to whatever required council support to expedite in some way, I would think council would have supported that in looking at the potential funding that we look at losing and the impact that it could have on our infrastructure going forward. So then I guess the final comment I have on it is just collectively, if there's any insights on how we can, you know, work together to make sure this funding goes through. And like you said, if it's I'd like to see a strategy for that if we run into problems, and continuous updates on this in the interim. Thank you.
Councillor St. Martin.
Mr. Reeve, through to administration, I would encourage at the bureaucratic level that you make those phone calls. I find sometimes that can help move things along if they know. And, you know, point out things like we've been dealing with wildfires, and we've been dealing with all these things that, you know, have used our internal resources. I do have a question, Mr. Reeve, through to CEO Ferris, the funding, have we submitted the request for the funding? Do we have the funding? Or,
I would have to rely on Mr. Orwo to speak to that if I wouldn't know that answer.
I think that the refunding has been requested at this point, yes.
Councillor McNeil?
Just in going back in the review that I did, the funding was approved in the 2023 DRP plan. So if that's part of your question, or did you mean the actual funds? Have we received the actual funds? Okay, sorry.
Anything else on this topic? See, anybody wants to make a motion to lobby all of the departments listed there? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, I can do that. Move the council direct, administration to prepare and send letters and emails and use phone messaging under the signature of the Reeve to the local MLA, relevant provincial ministers, the local member of parliament and relevant federal ministers requesting expedited review of regulatory approvals required by Woodlands County Disaster Recovery Program, DRP projects scheduled for completion in 2026.
Thank you, Councillor. Just one question on the motion to Mr. Ferris. We do have two MLAs. I'm just wondering why we're including one and not the other.
Fair enough. We have the benefit of two MLAs, putting the plural on there would probably be best practice for sure.
Councillor, do you accept that as an amendment?
Of course.
Thank you. So amended to include both of our MLAs. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call that question. All in favor? That's moved. 8.3, that's Mr. Shep, our 2026-2027 RCMP Community Policing Priority Survey.
Yes, good morning. Last council meeting, there was a motion put forward in regards to putting a survey out for the RCMP 26-27 community policing priorities. This was brought forward from the Emergency Services Committee that I believe a couple of councillors sit on. This was in conjunction with the town of Whitecourt. There was a tight deadline on this topic, as the RCMP would like information back from them no later than the 16th of March. So we as the county launched a social media survey inviting residents to provide feedback on the community policing priorities. In the survey itself, there was priorities explained as in crime reduction, property crime, theft, crime reduction, persons crime, reduced drug offenses, traffic safety, policing community relations and visibility, and crime prevention. From that survey, as you can tell in front of you in your package, the information came back to us. There was 71 answers, 71 responses in that short period of time, so fairly decent comeback from residents. We use social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, through our, and our website through our public information officer. From that, you can tell that your priorities are crime reduction, number one, property crime and theft is what came out number one, crime reduction, persons crimes, and then your reduced drug offenses, from what I'm reading here. This information, again, was a time-sensitive topic, so it had to go back, or will be going back to the RCMP no later than the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Shep. Any questions for Mr. Shep? So I don't see much for surprises on here. A lot of what I would say, especially the comments about visibility, the more visible somebody is in the area, tends to steer other people away. Anything else, Councillor McNeil?
Just that I appreciated the comments in the survey, and although it's definitely some of the information we've been hearing from our residents, I'm glad to see it go through to the RCMP in a report that they can forward and make sure the residents' voices are heard, so because the property crimes and some people, you know, having multiple break-ins at their locations and so on, like, it's definitely something that we need to get addressed at a higher level.
And just in regards to crime prevention, question for administration, Mr. Shep, the RCMP does have that voluntary program where you can register cameras in areas for, do you know if we've had much uptake within the municipality on that?
To the chair, there hasn't been much uptake in Woodlands. There's more in the town, of course. They push that substantially harder in the town with RCMP.
For counselors that may not know what the program is with the RCMP, it's a voluntary program where if you do have cameras on your property, you can, I guess, voluntarily register with the RC. So if there is an event or something in their area, they can, you know, they know who has cameras and where they can possibly come and, you know, maybe look at the feed or get information on. It doesn't give them access all the time. It's still, if you don't want to give the information, you don't have to, but it gives them kind of a bit of a data bank for where there may be cameras in relation to where events happen. So, Councillor St. Martin.
Mr. Reeve, thank you for that information and thank you to staff for getting that survey out so quickly. I really appreciate that we get the feedback from our ratepayers. With respect to the cameras, have we put any sort of information out there to the community? Through to
Yeah,
administration?
Through the chair, to councillors, that would be recently, no, there has been in the past, but not recently.
My memory, sir, I think it's been at least 2 years since we put that out.
Hey, Mr. Reeve, thank you, and maybe that's something we could do to inform ratepayers of that option.
And I completely agree, any information that we can put out, and I know there's some people that feel it's a privacy thing with people, that's not the intent of the program, it's just, again, if something happens in the area, they know where they could possibly get imaging from, so. With that, with 8.3, we have any, Councillor Whitten?
I'll move that council receive the RCMP Community Policing Priority Survey results for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on his motion? Not seeing any, I'll call that question, all in favor? We do have a second motion there to provide this to RCMP. Councillor Wright?
I make a motion that council direct administration to provide the 2026-2027 RCMP Community Policing Priority Survey results to the RCMP by March 16th, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Discussion on the councillor's motion? Not seeing any there, I'll call the question, all in favor? If councillor would allow me, I'd like to make a third motion here to direct administration to review and put out the information on the RCMP cameras again to the voluntary camera program.
If I may.
Councillor, or Mr. Veras?
So absolutely, we can do that. Just the one thing to keep in mind is I don't believe all of our RCMP detachments do it. So we will advertise it accordingly, but there may be an asterisk because I don't believe all of the detachments currently do that.
Okay, and that's fair enough. Thank you for that. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call that question, all in favor? Thank you. 9.1 councillor reports, so some time before we get to our delegation here. I'll start with Councillor Whitten.
So on the 5th of March, I attended virtually the BARC meeting. We went up, they have an upcoming workshop that is Tuesday, April 28th. It's in Barhead. It's from 6:30 PM to 8 PM and the details for that will be all forthcoming here once they get their agenda approved. And on Thursday the 10th, we attended the strat plan with Ted Wecker and all of council, and it was fantastic. It was very, very informative. And last night, the 11th, was the Ag Society meeting, and we just discussed upcoming spring and summer events and the planning for the Hamlet Hoedown and just getting everything in order.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion for Councillor Whitten. Councillor McNeil.
Thanks, actually, it was a really busy couple of weeks. On February 27th, I attended a webinar on the Clean Energy Improvement Program administered by Alberta Munis. This program can be beneficial for residents in Woodlands County who may be considering energy efficiency upgrades to their home. I forwarded program information to council and administration and requested that the topic be added to an upcoming April meeting agenda for council discussion. From March 2nd to 4th, alongside CAO Ferris, I attended the SMR Canada Summit in Calgary. The summit featured 91 speakers over 2 days and provided valuable insight into developments not only within small modular reactor technology, but nuclear energy as a whole. A number of important connections were made during the event, notably also panelist Kim Ogilvie of Capital Power acknowledged Woodlands County during a session, noting that their team felt our municipality was the most welcoming during engagement sessions held in the region last year. And in the 2 days of the event, we were the only municipality that I heard shouted out from panelists. So we were kind of impressed to hear that in the room. And representatives from Capital Power and OPG stated they're waiting for a signal from the Alberta government to be able to move forward with SMR projects in Alberta. As we have an unregulated energy market and significant private investment will be required, companies need some assurance that the government will work with them to de-risk the financial investments required to move these projects forward. And they are willing to meet with us and our regional partners as well to have a dialogue on how we may be able to create advocacy and support them in those discussions. So that's something I'll have more information on within the next couple of weeks. I felt Minister Nate Glubish brought insight and logic to the discussion as he noted the path to energy security in Alberta is expanding our natural gas energy production first, followed by the development of carbon capture, utilization and storage, and then nuclear. Because realistically, what we're looking at for nuclear is on the outside of 14 years likely if the province does decide to go ahead with it. So, and we're gonna have major energy concerns that we're gonna need addressed prior to that. I'd also like to extend my appreciation to CEO Ferris for his high level of engagement throughout the conference. It was a pleasure working collaboratively to coordinate the session strategically and share insights on what we were learning and connect with the key stakeholders. And I really appreciated your engagement on that. So on March 4th, 5th, and 10th, I participated in evening board training workshops as part of my role with Community Futures Yellowhead East. The sessions are interactive and include breakout exercises connecting board members with Community Futures teams from across Alberta. The 3 modules completed to date covered operations, legal responsibilities of boards, and Community Futures lending, with another workshop I have scheduled for this evening. The Community Futures training has provided valuable insight into the complexity and importance of community future operations. With our local board having experienced significant turnover following the last election, resulting in only 1 returning board member. The training responsibilities for the new board are substantial. There are 15 modules in total, and the training represents a meaningful investment by the organization. It's pretty expensive. One statistic shared during the session stood out to me. Research indicates that across boards in general, only about 30% of board members read their meeting packages prior to meetings, reinforcing the importance of preparation and governance diligence when serving in our boards and council roles. On March 5th, I also attended a CAO Employment Committee meeting. On March 6th, I had my first meeting with our strat planning consultant. Later that evening, I had the pleasure of attending the Ag Services Board dinner at Westward Hall with some of our colleagues. Dawn Fortin and her team did a wonderful job organizing the event. The catering in the venue was excellent, and the entertainment. I would also like to express my appreciation to Mayor Hiltz and Councillors Baker, Lapointe, Macri, and Langto from the town of Whitecourt for attending the event. I look forward to continuing to build strong relationships between our councils and exploring ways that we can support initiatives that strengthen both of our municipalities and the region as a whole. On March 10th, I attended our first strat planning sessions with fellow members of council and members of the senior management team. One of my key takeaways from the session was hearing councillors express their commitment to working for the benefit of all residents of the county and recognizing what benefits the broader region ultimately benefits individual communities as well. The concept that a rising tide raises all boats resonated strongly with me. And while this may seem like an expected perspective, I note it because in many rural municipalities, including criticisms of past councils and observations from other jurisdictions, there can sometimes be a tendency for councillors to focus primarily on issues affecting their own divisions. And hearing, you guys and our colleagues articulate a broader regional mindset was really great and greatly appreciated. I really truly feel proud to have the opportunity to sit at this table with such a diverse group of people. And on March 11th, in recognition of International Women's Day this past Sunday, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities hosted a session titled Women in Leadership, Breaking Barriers and Building Support. For those interested, the recording will be made available on the FCM website. One of the panelists was Kathy Valentino, a third-term councillor from Thompson, Manitoba, who currently serves as president of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities and vice president of the SCM. During the discussion, she highlighted several factors that can create additional challenges for women in politics, including bullying and toxic political environments, the relatively low number of female leaders, limited maternity leave options for elected officials, meeting structures that are not always respectful of parenting responsibilities, and the reality that campaign funding can sometimes be more difficult for women to obtain. She also noted that the Association of Manitoba Municipalities has developed a strong harassment and social media toolkit for all elected officials, and emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with supportive people, not only within your leadership team, but also among your friends and family. Councillor Valentino shared that she is not entirely comfortable with being referred to as the first female president of the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, noting that her goal was simply to be a good and qualified president. As someone who spent much of my career working in traditional male-dominated industries, I appreciate that perspective. I never set out to be the first or the minority. In many cases, my motivation was simply that in order to earn a fair wage and build a career, I needed to pursue work that was historically considered men's work. Another panelist spoke about the importance of allowing young women in our communities to not only see the leader we have become, but also the girl we once were. When young people can see themselves reflected in those who lead, it helps them understand that they too have the potential to grow into leadership roles. A theme that resonated throughout the discussion was the continued importance of women and men working together to create equal opportunities for people in general. Strong communities and organizations benefit when leadership reflects collaboration, mutual respect, and shared responsibility for building inclusive environments. A statistic that stood out this past week related to the adoption of artificial intelligence tools. Research indicates that women are currently adopting AI technologies at lower rates than men. Given the exponential growth of AI and its increasing influence across industries, and its impact on industries that are traditionally female-dominated, this gap has the potential to create new technological disadvantages in the workplace, if not addressed. Ensuring equitable access to knowledge, training, and confidence in emerging technologies will be important so that opportunities created by these tools are shared broadly across society. So that was kind of long-winded, and thank you, but there was a lot of great sessions and information this past couple of weeks.
Councillor discussion for Councillor McNeil? Councillor Wright?
On March 5th, I attended the CAO Employment Committee meeting with some fellow councillors, so it was a very productive meeting. March 6th, I did my online interview with Ted Waker for our strat preparation. It was really nice to just have that one-on-one time to really talk and feel heard, so I appreciated that. March 9th, I attended the Blue Ridge Community League meeting. The one thing that I thought I should mention for that group is that they do have an event coming up on March 28th that is a fundraiser. So they are doing a spring fling and they will have silent auctions, 50/50s, different things going on there, and in hopes of raising some funds to put back into the ball diamonds, the outdoor rink, and the Blue Ridge Community Hall. March 10th, I joined all council for the strat planning session and the administration. That was a great event, and same thing that Patricia had mentioned, it was nice to hear the difference and see how well council worked together and the ideas that we came up with. And then the only other thing was Hardeep from Blue Ridge Lumber had reached out to me with just a quick update. He was very excited and wanted me to mention that every single employee that was laid off with the fire has been rehired and they are back at the mill. So they are ecstatic about that, and they have all of the Renault's Gar, the maintenance going on right now. It's not quite finished yet, but he'll give me another update on that.
Questions for Councillor Wright? Councillor Dean?
Thank you, that's great news to hear, Councillor Wright. On February 26th, I attended a Athabasca Watershed Council virtual meeting, and nothing that really stood out about the meeting, but that organization, continues to work with the province to shape the use of our watershed, and they do a good job. I had my TED call on March 3rd, and again, as Councillor Wright said, it was nice to connect with our consultant and relay some items that I felt were important that council discussed, so that was really well received. On the 6th of March, I attended the Reynolds Murphy legal seminar in Grand Prairie, same one that Councillor McNeil had attended before, and did have a takeaway that I relayed on to our CAO. What the session was dealing with was use of electronic surveillance like GPS and cameras, etc., within a workforce, and the limitations, the liabilities, the legalities surrounding that, and so we don't currently have a policy that directs that. The legal opinion was that policy development is basically a must. Our usage doesn't fall within a scope that a policy is really time sensitive, but I think it's something that council should ask administration to look into and bring back at a later time. I also attended the ASB dinner along with most of council, and I really want to give a shout out to those folks from the Town of Whitecourt Town Council. It was great to see their attendance and their support for the event. I look forward to tomorrow's regional strat planning session with that council. A note about that dinner, there were a little over 60 guests, which is a little bit down from last year. Apparently we had about 85. There was a conflict with, there was a country music artist playing at St. Joe's Parish Hall the same night, and that had been booked for previous to this, and our ASB committee was not aware of that, so my bad. I probably should have checked to see that there was no conflicts in the area, but still I thought 60 people in the hall was a good representation from our area. And nice to see the youth in that ag community, the Thompson boys that came up to accept that beautification award, they're I think one was 10 and one was about 8, so it was pretty cool to see them. And then I was part of that strat planning session on Wednesday, and was it Wednesday? Tuesday. Sorry. Great free flow of ideas, a really good start. And while we kicked around vision statement and mission statement and the whole wordsmithing that goes into that, the real benefit is that council got a chance to express themselves, explain what their vision was, and it was nice to see how you know, those ideas were all accepted, and we're gonna rely on our consultant to coalesce them into something that reflects the conversation, but I thought it was a great start. And that's it.
Counselor, discussion for Counselor Dean? None, Counselor St. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I wanted to say thank you to all the counselors that picked up for me during my family matter. Thank you. And I did attend on February 25th the emergency management meeting. As you'll see, Council, there's a number of items in the agenda package that are a result of that meeting. I had my interview with Ted Weicker of Catalyst Research on March 5th. And I attended the ASB supper as well at the Westward Community Center. Strategic planning I attended as well, and I echo everybody. It was really nice to see the team communicate and work well together, as well as administration. I did attend a Whitecourt Community Services Board meeting, and just a few events. Woodlands County and Town of Whitecourt are gearing up for National Volunteer Week, which is April 19th to 26th. I will point out that Woodlands County contributes to the Town of Whitecourt's volunteer program. And if we have any individuals who live in the Town of Whitecourt who actually volunteer in Woodlands County, we can submit a nomination form, or members of the community can submit a nomination form. Also, Spirit of Youth, there's a nomination deadline of April 9th. Again, this is another program that Woodlands County contributes towards. So if you have a youth in the community that you want to nominate, please check out the Whitecourt website. I have asked administration to cross-promote some of these events and activities. So we should have that on the county website as well. I also want to point out that there is a camp that's scheduled for what is the date on March 31st to April 2nd, and it's for ages 11 to 4, and it's a free program. So if there's any ratepayers in the Woodlands County that want to take part in this camp, again, you'll be able to register on the website. Another event is Adult Board Game Night, and that's Monday, April 13th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. This is free. Snacks and refreshments are provided, and so any adults that want to participate in that may do so as well. And one more is the 2026 Go Girl Conference, Saturday, April 25th from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. It's for girls grade 5 through 9. It'll be in Jasper, Alberta, and if you wish to register for that as well, it's $20 per person. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion, Councillor St. Martin? Councillor Clukin?
Yeah, thank you. I attended Bardich's social housing meeting on the 27th. Some interesting developments there. We are just getting into the planning phases of developing some low-cost housing. It's in alignment with the needs assessment, and our management team there has just entered into some agreements on some of the preliminary drawings. Bardich Social is well positioned to do some of these projects. My question was the requisition, of course, and currently there will be no request for any extra requisitions, just what we have been contributing. Facing some interesting challenges there. The big one is the cost of food. This has been one that we've really struggled with keeping within the budget, but they've done some really unique stuff to management strategies to help alleviate some of those costs. Of course, the residents, when you're of that age, it seems that they key into that a lot quicker, so we have to be very careful. On the second, I met with Ted Weicker from Catalyst, had a great half-hour session with him. which then, transpired into the session on the 10th. And again, I was very happy with the good discussion around the table. It's a good group of people, a lot of good ideas, and I think that we've got a really good handle on where we want to go and some of the things we want to do. On the 4th, I attended the Finance Committee meeting for FCSS. It's one of the committees of that board that I sit on, where we are looking at some of the challenges that we're facing in being able to deliver the services with cost of everything going up. I'm happy to report that at Fort Assiniboine they're doing a really good job of providing the services there. They're up to 60 some clients now. And the other part that they've started, which is kind of because the people are there, is a food bank, which FCSS normally doesn't do, but they actually, because there's people there, they have volunteers that are using that facility to help out in that regard. Then the Ag Service Board supper was great. I was so happy to see that Whitecourt was there. It's always one of the things that I've been advocating for years is that we have to develop a shared understanding between rural and urban, and I think there's an appetite for that because these small rural urbans are actually the lifeblood of their rural communities, and so that was really good to see. Was happy to be in on that event again as every year. I guess that is pretty much it for me.
Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion for Councillor Coogan? So I'm gonna start off with the Ag Service dinner. Again, like to thank the town. The first time that I've been on council that they've actually attended that event, so it was great to see. I'm very thankful they were there. Only thing I would like to, whether it's task this council or even administration when we come up to our next one, is the number of awards that we gave out versus the number of individuals that we have. And I know that we put it out on Facebook, we put it out on social media. There are a lot of, and I'm just going to use the Rural Beautification Awards as an example. There are a lot of properties within our municipality that are absolutely beautiful, that people take a lot of pride in their place and in what they do, and it's a way to showcase those and be able to recognize the individuals for the work that they put into them. So we had one award this year. I know there's a lot more people across the municipality than one person that has that amount of pride in their property. So I'm not sure how we can get the word out more when we get there, but I just feel that there's a lot more of an opportunity to recognize the people that we have. I think strat plan session's been kind of covered here. I'm very thankful for the conversations that we had and kind of where they weren't or where they kind of went to. I believe that the people that we have around the table have kind of a mind vision for what things could look like. We'll see where everything comes back when Ted compiles everything and brings the information, but I'm excited to continue in that process. I did have a phone call with Curtis Brownlee. He is a economic development consultant. Bert Roach had him give me a phone call. They're kind of compiling a lot of questions and I guess around where questions they had for me is what I see as strong suits, what I feel we're lacking in the municipality, and kind of it was a really, really good conversation. I think I was on the phone with him for just about an hour there, a little bit more. Some of the questions that come out when we were talking about what we can do to try and I guess showcase what we have here is also working partially with the town or with Lac St. Anne or with just jointly around the other regions, because there's always opportunities that come up that may not fit what we have but might fit in one of our neighboring municipalities, and being able to work more collaboratively with everybody around the table. If you have more than one entity pushing for an object, it makes it more appealing, he said, for investors. So lots of really good conversations. Like I said, it was a large talk. Waiting to see, I believe the information he's bringing is gonna go to the ECDEV committee before it comes here, because it is running through BERT, so I'm waiting to see where that gets to. I had a YRL meeting here this last Monday, I let Mr. Ferris know, but I do believe that the YRL rates are going up. I think it's 30 cents is what I don't have the numbers in front, but I did share them with Matthew per capita as part of their operating fees. I know there was pushback in the last term with the last set of people around the table. Some municipalities don't get hit as hard, but larger municipalities, it's a large increase to their operating budgets when it's a per capita basis. So it is something that is coming. And I do also want to thank Councillor Dean. I wasn't able to make the Hilltop Awards there for their school awards for all the events and stuff they had there. I typically do make it. It's a great event showcasing all of the the bright kids that we have coming up into our community. And Councillor Dean was able to fill that hole for me, so thank you very much, Councillor. And only other, meeting I had there also was the Whitecourt Library Board. New members are going through some policies off and on. We had some of our provincial application for funding. We were just finalizing, getting the motions to send that off for. And we'll see where some of the policies or some adjustments we wanted. Again, some of them based around the moves into the new building that are anticipated, and just might be some different expectations. So waiting to see what comes out of our next meeting. And that's what I have. Any questions, comments? Councillor Dean?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One with respect to the awards that the Ag Service Board hands out. The other award that was not handed out was Ag Pioneer. And what the board has kind of come to the conclusion is that there's a bit of a turning of the generational wheel, and those people that would qualify for that Ag Pioneer Award in our community, not everyone, but many of them have been recognized. And so now we're waiting for that second generation who is taking over to get to that same stage. I think it's 35 years, is that correct, Councillor Colkin?
Yeah.
So, that's one of the things that the service board is looking at is perhaps changing the definition of what we want to award, and we're looking at an innovation award, because there's lots of ag people out there that are doing some pretty interesting things. So I think, not to minimize your concern because it's very valid, but just wanted council to be aware of that. And the other thing is, thank you for bringing up that awards. I meant to say, when I addressed that group, it was so refreshing to see so many county kids in the crowd. They're either there for their individual awards or the honors award and merit award, but there were lots of familiar faces there. And I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to a young man. His name is Jaron Turcott, and he's a strong academic student, but he also has a deep passion for basketball, and he has made the University of Alberta's kind of summer squad. So he'll be participating with that group, and then travel to Italy for a couple of weeks of basketball in Europe. So I thought that was a pretty impressive accomplishment for, he's coming from our area. He's competing with kids from all over the province for those 12 positions, and he earned one. So good for him.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, do I get a motion to move the council reports, and we'll get to our delegation here. Councillor Kuchen?
Yeah, I'll move council reports to receive this information.
Councillor, call the question. All in favor? That's moved. And then we're a couple minutes past here for our 10:30. We're our delegation here.
Yeah.
Everybody's here. I'm just wondering who's taking the lead. Is you, Mrs. Anderson, or? Okay.
So we have a presentation from the Alberta Parks today. I think your group will be working a little bit together regarding the Centre of Alberta, an exciting project they've been working on, and I'll just let, I don't know who's speaking, but I'll do it.
Yeah. We'll do a quick round of it so you know who we have at the table here. Ms. Lutwig, if we wanna start, we'll start over your corner.
Jones Ludwig,
John Oro, Director of Finance.
Excuse me, Alan Dean, counselor for Whitecourt Central.
Karen St. Martin, counselor for Whitecourt East.
Peter Kilcoyne, I'm counselor for Freeman River, Goose Lake.
Dave Kush, I'm the Reeve and the counselor for Anselmo.
Jenna Wright, I'm the counselor for Blue Ridge.
Tricia McNeil, I'm the counselor for Whitecourt West.
Benny Whitten, counselor for Timmy Fortison one.
Matthew Ferris, CAO.
Tracy Lucas, manager of legislative services and communications.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting us here to council. So my name is Dave Hugel-Shaver and I'm the manager for the recreation program for forestry and parks for the North Portage province. So the distinction there being, these are public lands that are not under a provincial park, so everything else, vast area. So, and I'll let my team introduce themselves. Go ahead.
My name is Norbert Rafal. I'm the recreation management specialist for this area and stationed out of Lac La Biche. And our district, the Northeast District, is basically from Highway 16 through the middle of Slave Lake, north to the Northwest Territories and then the Saskatchewan boundary.
Good morning, I'm Sean Phoenix. I'm the recreation coordinator. I actually work out of the office here in Whitecourt. I take care of a lot of the logistical stuff and the project coordination for this project.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm James Gauss, and I'm the Senior Recreation Infrastructure Planner for the Northeast of Alberta.
So we have a PowerPoint presentation prepared to explain who we are, and some information about the Center of Alberta Natural Area where we've done some work and some opportunities for the council. So I think I have control here. There we go. So this is just the agenda here quickly, who we are, a little bit about trail planning, building maintenance, how and who does that work. And then the Center of Alberta Trail rebuilding, reopening and partnership opportunities. So who we are to start with, if you look at the map, first of all, our region is the top two districts that are defined in both red and blue. Those are different groups within there. There's a north region and a south region, and the regional boundary is the red line that kind of jags through the center, east-west there. And within the Recreation Ecosystem and Lands Program, which is called the REAL program for short, there are two branches. One is a Lands Ecosystem and Conservation Unit, and the manager for that's Laura Polasek. She's not here right now, and she works very closely with myself. And I have what's called the Recreation, Education and Partnerships, or the REP unit. And so essentially, to break it down, simply the LEC unit, Landscape Ecology, they do the planning for recreation trails and trail management plans that fall under the Trails Act. And then my group delivers the operational components. So we work to get those trails built, maintained, find and maintain partnerships, things of that nature. We also, within that sort of envelope, there's a number of sort of key stages in the development of any particular trail, right? We have what's called an infrastructure development plan, or an IDP, and this really says this is what we're going to actually build. As far as what's the purpose, what sort of structures, what the trail classification and use will be. We're going to have outhouses and all that kind of stuff. We have capital funding requests, CMRs, and so every year in October we submit requests through to the Treasury Board to say we have these projects we would like to see funded for trail rebuilds, bridge installations, staging areas, campgrounds, and things that are outside of provincial parks. And it's a bit of a competitive process. And then we work with a group called CIDI, so that's Capital Infrastructure Development and Implementation. Those are the folks in parks proper. So when you think of provincial parks that have been around for 50, 60 years, those are the folks that run the provincial parks system. And their capital infrastructure construction function has been expanded across the province to include areas that are out of parks. So there's sort of three different phases and groups involved in developing a trail system. One is the LEC group, they do the planning, develop what's called trail management objectives. We have the REP group, that's my group, we actually do the operational component of implementing those plans, and then the actual construction where a contractor is hired to build things is done through this other group. So it's it's a bit complex setup, but it seems to work quite well. And we try to deliver really most of our maintenance through partnership agreements, and we'll get into that a little bit farther down there. So this is just a brief sort of diagram of the trail management system. I don't expect anybody to really be reading that tiny font up there, but it just goes through what I sort of mentioned. We have a planning process. The intention is then to protect trails with a specific designation. We didn't have that protection in Alberta until about 4 or 5 years ago with the Trails Act and consequential amendments to the Public Lands Act, Public Lands Administration regulation. Before that, it was just seismic lines, things like that. Trails didn't really have an entity in the provincial land management, public land management sort of approach. Right now, they actually have a designation. They can be protected. And then we also, following that, we can authorize work on those designated trails, and we are working on maintaining some sustainable funding for that. So and we can talk about the funding part a little bit later. There's several different sort of sources and approaches there. So just getting into the trail management planning process first. We identify the route, the type of activity, seasonal considerations. Is this snowmobile trail only? Like, does it just go through soft ground? Is it a snowmobile trail and an OHV trail, or is it a non-motorized trail? What does that look like? Is it non-motorized multiple use? Is it only an equine trail? Is it only a cross-country ski trail? So naturally, there are a lot of different user interests that need to be consulted and discussed and try and minimize the conflicts. And what we're trying to do is build trails that are best suited to the actual landscape conditions, melded with the desires of those various recreation groups. To do that, we have staff that review, do a desktop review as well as doing field inspection, working with stakeholders and so forth. There's a number of reports that we have to review around geo-administrative boundaries, landscape values, what approvals are required from other branches of the province and from the feds. Like I say, we do a lot of engagement with our affected land users and existing disposition holders, stakeholders as well. So typically any organized recreation group that is within the planning area. And we do the required Indigenous consultation as per the standard GOA policies as well. The important bit here to remember about a trails management plan, and the heart of the whole thing really is what we call the trail management objective. So every trail needs to have an objective. What kind of trail is it? What is its intended use? Is there timing constraints? That sort of thing. Those are all stated in the trails management plan, and that is essentially what we operationalize downstream in the process. So once we have a trail management plan completed, it's signed off by our regional executive director, then we move to have that trail designated provincially. And the designation is a formal process. It's done through a ministerial order, and it has the force of the Trails Act and the Public Lands Act behind it. So if you think about dispositions, well sites, roads, things like that, this has the same sort of level of authority, but it's done directly through a ministerial order. So we try and do those ministerial orders once a year to reflect the trails that we have completed trails management plans for. Prior to start up the system, we actually designated 6,000 kilometers of trail across Alberta on public land, and we've added another 1,000 kilometers through our planning efforts. So we sort of grandfathered in 1,000 kilometers of trail that we knew has been maintained by various groups. So really the legislation allows us a number of protections and powers, and I think we go into that right here. So just very very briefly, the things that we can do on a provincial trail that we can't do on vacant public land with seismic line. We can put up signs and notices. You know, we can control what type of users, are they motorized, non-motorized, they have to stay on the trail tread. We can close trails if need be for various reasons, wildlife, environmental, safety. Pets have to be kept under control on provincial trails. There are actually speed limits written into legislation for motorized vehicles. Discharge of a firearm is not allowed within 400 meters of a trail tread unless you're hunting. And then if you're hunting, you follow the hunting regulations as much as you would with the road. Pardon me. You can't put traps right on the trail. You have to be done minimum 10 meters off, and things like that. And you can't obstruct it as well, that sort of thing. So coming specifically to a few more things that my group does. Really the important message here is this program is only about 5 years old now. It took probably 3 years to get the thing really up and running, get the necessary equipment, get the necessary staff, create job descriptions for positions that had never existed. And really what we're doing is we're trying to take the unmanaged public lands outside of parks and move trails from an unmanaged to a managed state. So we have hundreds of thousands of kilometers of seismic lines, old trails that have been created. They're not managed, they're not protected, they're not fixed, and we're trying to move them into a managed state. Pardon me. Clearly we can't do that for everything. It's a huge task, but we're trying to identify the trails of greater significance, greater interest, greater impact, user conflicts, trails with environmental concerns, trails with safety concerns on them. And and that does tie into municipal search and rescue. We do chat with search and rescue when we make these plans. If we're looking at an area, how often have there been incidents where we've had to medevac people out of there and things like that, right? And what parts of the trail? As you can appreciate, many trail systems have chronic areas where search and rescue has had to respond. There's just a side-by-side trying to go up a trail in Mackenzie Creek. It was so steep it just tipped right over. So in moving it from an unmanaged to managed state, quite a few things we do there. We have to inventory and assess, what sort of trails are on the landscape. Part of that is through the sub-regional, the sub-regional planning process that's ongoing now. We have to identify the trail systems, the opportunities that exist. Where do we have to do repair, reclamation, and you know what? Part of this is not just making trails better. Some of the trails are bad enough that they have to be closed off, reclaimed, and replaced by better trails. So the end result is to try and create trails that are sustainable, that are more enjoyable to ride, and safer. And they are maintained. We identify the need for trails management plans. So typically our group is the one that are interfacing with users that are out on the landscape, and we say, look, there's a problem over here. We need to develop a trails management plan, and we involve our trail management planning folks in the other group there. Here's a big one, and we'll talk about this as an opportunity for the municipality, is identifying partners for trail development and management. And then that is done through partnership agreements, and there are funding mechanisms relative to grant applications and so forth. We will talk about that a little bit more further down in the presentation. And in developing our capital infrastructure plans, as we discussed, and we do our consultation. So just a few quick words about the capital infrastructure development program itself. This is the actual installation of bridges, the actual construction of trails, installation of outhouses, warming shelters. For instance, that's a 30-meter quad bridge, 100-foot quad bridge, put over a river. That's a typical sort of bridge that we would install specifically for OHVs. It has a maximum width rail to rail of 72 inches. So anything bigger than that, can't go on. There is a capital infrastructure development fund that the province maintains, and it varies year to year based on the budget, based on many provincial funding concerns, because we have to compete with all the other departments, education, hospitals, roads, and so forth, to get a slice of the provincial pie, right? I think last year we had about $100 million worth of projects across the province. Okay, multi-year planning process. So of course everybody's quite excited when they come to us. They have an area they would like to see fixed up. It's a favorite trail. They even have folks that would like to join with us in a partnership for maintaining it. They would like the trail protected, and they would like things like bridges put in and bad areas, filled in. And typically, it is a multi-year planning process. We have close to 80 projects in our queue right now, and we can only manage 5 or 6 of them a year. So what we do is we set priorities based on human safety, first of all, environmental impact, user conflicts, things of that nature, right? And we try and get the areas that need the repair done as rapidly as possible. There is also the possibility of having some planning done by outside parties that are interested in accelerating the process. And I'll mention that when we get to the trail partnership a little bit more. We have some large partnerships as well. And like I mentioned, it is a bit of a competitive process to get the money. And the other thing is we like to work with partners to identify capital needs. So if you're a trail manager, you're signed up with us and you're maintaining some trails, we depend on you to come back to us and say, look, this bridge is falling apart over here, it needs to be replaced. As a trail manager, that's not your cost, that's the province's cost. But we need to know that that needs to be done and we get that project into the planning queue. So really our business model on public lands outside of parks is we build things and you operate them as a partner. So a little bit about trail manager, which if the municipality was interested in becoming a trail manager for the town of Alberta specifically, which we'll talk about here towards the end of the presentation, a little bit of information there as well. Really, the role of a trail manager is to maintain and monitor trails. There's no expectation of enforcement. There's no expectation of capital repairs. There's just expectations around things like trees that fall down, fixing ruts, things like that. And monitoring reporting problems, to the province so that we can fix them if the capital is in nature. And then there's grant opportunities that have been provided. We have had this is the 4th year of a multi-year funding arrangement with both the Alberta Snowmobile Association and the Alberta Off-Highway Vehicle Association. So they've each got $1 million a year for the last 4 years, and they maintain all the motorized trails on public land in Alberta, which is a big job, actually. So we don't give out grants to small groups that are motorized clubs. They need to belong to one of those 2 parent organizations, which provides a very highly efficient way to disperse the grant funding, because each of those bigger organizations have 30 or 40 member clubs as well. Non-motorized agreements, we don't have any provincial bodies of that level that have sufficient governance structure for allow us, to give a large grant to, say, Equestrian Foundation for all of Alberta. So we tend to deal with those clubs one-on-one based on the trail systems that they're passionate about and they've been working on. Really what we're trying to do is facilitate the continued good work that volunteers have always been doing on these trails. Giving them more resources, helping them build capacity, giving them more tools. So to do that, you enter into a formal trail agreement, and under legislation, a trail agreement has status. You can only be a trail manager holding a trail agreement for a designated trail in the province, not just any trail, it has to be designated. And in the green box there, as I mentioned, we're looking for interest from Woodlands County relative to becoming the trail manager for the Centre of Alberta, both the motorized and non-motorized aspect to that. Your overview.
All right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the actual trail at Centre of Alberta, and to give you a brief rundown and a sort of succinct aspect of how it was built and that. First thing I'd like to talk about though is that you may or may not know what a natural area is. So provincial parks, which we are not, we are public lands, but Provincial Parks Act has a provincial park, the wildland provincial parks, wilderness areas, ecological reserves, natural areas, which basically protecting natural features and allowing for moderate recreational aspect, and heritage rangelands. So we're talking about, of these ones, only the natural areas. And then there's some other things in the background now that lands has taken over from Alberta Parks. So the Centre of Alberta, just to give you an idea here, it's basically a classic boreal forest type environment. And it does have an abundance of many things, but one of them is it does have an abundance of fungi, and that's why I took this picture actually from the trail, one of the groups. It's kind of an interesting mycology of the area. And the other thing that is something that is sort of trending, that 3+ kilometer walk very much lends itself to the Japanese term of bathing in the woods, right? If you walk that thing, you probably know your blood pressure goes down, you feel a little more in tune and everything. So it's an easy, moderate walk for that. So having said that, so at the beginning, this is the very beginning of the trail when we did it, and what it illustrates here is the very first portion of the trail. And what the concept that we used to build this trail was that we wanted to ensure that we had the least amount of disturbance and in the best area for soils and upland, and to gain a usable trail that the majority of the public would be able to use, and particularly during snow-free conditions. So any of the upland areas, what you'll see here, you may not notice as well, is we mulched it with a mulcher about 3 to 4 inches, basically the A horizon, if you're talking about that in the soil. And the trail, as I said, weaves in and out of high ground. The reason that we did that, of course, is one of the things we didn't have to do any HRIAs or any of the other aspects of that when you're building something new and on the land. So here's some pictures from before and after. This illustrates actually the heavy-duty boardwalk that we used where standing water is evident, and or possibly most of the time of the year, or even ephemerally, just portion of it. So this gives you a little bit of an appearance of, I'm going to use some terms here, heavy-duty and light boardwalk. This is the heavy-duty one over standing water. And here's another one that gives you a little bit better. Now, unfortunately, these are all late fall, but this is a pretty wet area that now, with this boardwalk over it, we don't disturb any hydrology, we don't disturb anything underneath, and I'll illustrate that why in a little bit later. And now we're talking about light duty boardwalk, and it's used on areas that are pretty sensitive, and particularly in this area, we're going through areas, as I said, in highland, but we actually have quite a bit of lowland, but not necessarily bog or fen, but very much like a moss aspect here. And this fragile undergrowth, it's protected by this type of boardwalk and normally used in very poorly drained soil. So I'll show you, illustrate later on how we actually protect this land so that we're not damaging it in the long term. So the first thing I want to show you here is the construction technique that we used for the heavy duty boardwalk. So basically you'll see down there is 10 by 10 timbers that are placed in a manner so that even in a wetland and a forest, there is, I wouldn't call it seiche action, which means the movement of water back and forth, but there is a definite water flow on the topography. These timbers are placed so that they will not interfere with that. The reason is that sometimes when you drive through a highway, you'll see, through a wetland, you'll see some really nice growth on the left side, and on the right side that's dead. It's because the roadway interrupted the hydrology of the soils. So this way, it isn't, and actually this has been approved by the our wetland specialists as well, and the provincial wetland specialists, that this was actually brought forward to them, not for this project, but for a project up north in the Richardson Dunes. So we have a 10 by 10, as I said, we place then 6 by 6s across the foundation, and then on top of it, the planking is actually 3 by 8 by 8 feet planking, unplaned. This is the light duty boardwalk, and there's more to it than meets the eye here, actually. The first thing we do, as I said, to protect this type of a soil or fragile soil is we put geotextile cloth down on undisturbed soil. Then we took wood chips and laid them on this geotextile cloth to level it out, especially if there were ruts or if there were everything there. After that, we placed a 2 by 6 by 16 in a grid pattern, which is pre-built, and that's what you see the linear things, the linear wood pile there. And we put geotextile over that at the final end again, so there's 2 layers of geotextile like a sandwich, and then we put 4 inches of road crush on. The reason that we use geotextile and everything else is that if there is any reason that we actually need to, we can literally roll this back without any, and literally have no disturbance. So we scrape the gravel off, we take the wood out, we take the wood chips out, and then we roll back the geotextile cloth off the wood chips and they'll just come up. So that's one of the reasons. And again, it's HRI compliant. This is a approved way for Heritage Resources that. And another big deal, it allows the groundwater to remain, literally, we do not affect the groundwater whatsoever. And also the groundwater doesn't get disturbed with the gravel or anything else because again, the geotextile holds it up. So the other, we're getting here at the end, is that we also put, by the way, this is just a picture of the toilet that we put out, the new toilet beside the. So generally speaking, we constructed the boardwalk. We are now basically asking, and I think our Dave will ask about, what the appetite is for a grand opening for the trail and how the county may or may not wish to participate. And the time capsule too, is sort of a bit of a hidden elephant in the room. We did some exploration on it, and I can express further if anyone's interested in it, where we're at. But we feel that there's potential for the opening of the time capsule. I can't say that it'd be 100% because our assessment method last week, what I thought was, this would be easy. We just do some, we have a borescopes and go in and look. It wasn't all that easy, but we believe that it's there and everything. So I basically that's it for the end of my thing. Oh, by the way, I just want to say too, we rebuilt and refurbished the outhouse that's on the staging area, plus the kiosk. We put a new roof on it, and we are about to repaint it, and we get a brand new map that's being built even as we speak. Although there's a bit of a thing on it that we will put in there and replace, and then that map will have a distribution map of showing the Biggs area, all the other campsites around it, plus a bit of where the trail is, and then even some notes underneath. And we can add and do stuff to it. This could become an interpretive trail too, but I don't want to get into too much detail into that. I think this trail has an awful lot of potential, an awful lot. So
the one thing that occurred to me just as you were giving the presentation is we forgot to put in a picture of the cairn.
Oh, yes.
So for those that are not familiar with the trail, it's called the Center of Alberta because it is the exact geographical center of Alberta. So the natural area was created as sort of a commemoration of that. And a cairn was erected, with bricks, and then there's a statue of a bear on top of that. That marks the exact geographic center of Alberta. And within that cairn, there is apparently a time capsule that was put in about 30 years ago. And there was a dedication that was done at the time by the MLA. And unfortunately, the person that was involved in placing the time capsule is no longer with us. And there are no plans for exactly where the time capsule is in that cairn. So what we would like to do is probably June, July, have a sort of a grand reopening of the walking trail and couple that with an opening of the time capsule. So we're doing a little bit of work to see if we can find the time capsule so that we don't have to demolish the whole thing to get it. And we're interested, of course, in number one, if the county is interested in becoming a trail manager. Number two, regardless of the answer to the first question, interested in participating in the time capsule de-internment and opening. There was some folks that we got inquiries from that have reached out through media as well that were children when the time capsule was placed in, and they placed items into that. And they've been asking, well, when is it going to be open? So it seems like an opportune time now with this nice new walking trail to the site, to open the trail, reopen the time capsule. It could be a good sort of a local event to draw attention to the area, draw attention to the municipality. I know that at one point previous council had mentioned that they were interested in using Center of Alberta as sort of a branding with the municipality as well. I don't know if that's still in consideration, but it pairs well with this particular site. And there is also a motorized trail that we are going to be improving through a planning process that is a separate trail that ends up at that location. The trail that you were just looking at, that's sort of non-motorized trails for walking, hiking, strolling, that sort of thing. And so that's really the ask, I guess.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think the council should have a template of the agreement. Plus, I'm not sure if I sent out what a little bit of a cheat sheet, fact sheet is on what a trail manager does, what it is. If not, there's enough copies here to go out for later on perusals, should you wish.
There wouldn't be a lot of maintenance required on this particular trail, because it's got a lot of boardwalk on it, that's brand new. But there would be outhouses. How many outhouses are there?
There's two outhouses, right? There's a double combo right at the staging area, and there's a single one, that brand new one we bought, that'll be, that needs to have, you know,
That's right up by the cairn,
right beside, well, not right beside, but near the cairn,
Right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
3 kilometers in.
Yeah, and there's some picnic tables we put up there now as well. We brought picnic tables in and signposts that are on.
And we also do recognize our partners through signage, so this is the whatever trail area maintained by this entity, there's a contact number if there are concerns and that sort of thing. Open to questions.
Right, thank you very,
There's
Thank you.
so thank you guys very much for your presentation. Where we are, obviously, we're unique in the fact that we are, no other municipality can say that they have the center of Alberta in them. So this looks like a great opportunity, especially to partner with your re-grand opening that you're doing there. I'm gonna start with Councillor Kuhlken, then Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. I live not very far away from, if any of you have been up there, it's the Bison Farm that is just before, that's where I live. And my wife and I have actually walked that trail while you guys were repairing it. Great job, really proud to have that in our area. I really do appreciate the washrooms that you had, because I'm sure if any of you have been up there, if you've seen the one that was just off the trail there, where was just the toilet seat that on a couple of cross pieces. I was thinking, I was hoping you'd replace that. So great job. I think it has tremendous value to this municipality, because we always face the question when we're at the bigger conferences, where is Woodlands? And when we say the center of Alberta, they think it's close to Red Deer. So it's good. I do have a question. Historic trails, like the Klondike Trail is another part of a good history of this municipality, and I don't know how it fits into your trail network.
I don't think we've had that identified to us yet. So we're always open and eager to hear about new trails that we don't know about, having been a fairly new program still. So we're still learning, and typically what we've managed to discover a lot of trails through our grant program initially, because when you say there's money available to support you doing the good work you're doing, groups will self-identify and we learn about these things. So certainly if there's a trail that you're interested in, either as a municipality, as a recreation user group, to come to us, Norbert would be the main contact for that inquiry. And we are developing a number of plans that have mixed jurisdictions within them. So, we're developing a trail along the north shore of Slave Lake that goes through Wildland Park, goes through public lands, goes through a number of different jurisdictions. And the plan itself is a comprehensive trail plan. The designation, legislated designation portion will only apply to those geo-administrative areas where a public land where we'll apply. But the other jurisdictions are quite interested in using the plan, because obviously trails connect, right? We want them to connect, right? So we can develop plans cooperatively with other jurisdictions, for this sort of thing. So for instance, if the county at some point would like to develop a master trails plan of some sort, we would be the folks to come to, because we're involved in sub-regional planning, we're involved in all the trails. And, some of your trails may cross private land, may cross other jurisdictions. We can plan around that.
Looks like some wheels started turning in the back there when you talked about a county master plan. So, Councillor Dean and then Councillor St. Martin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and again, thank you very much for the presentation and for the outstanding job that's been done on that trail. It's really going to be an asset. It's good. It's a unique feature for sure. When you were going through the presentation, one of the slides near the end, there was a little green box, and it had what I thought were obligations of the county.
As a trail manager.
As a trail manager.
Yeah.
And one of the items, one of the bullet points talk to a budget or
Right. Yeah, it involves signing a trail agreement, requires an annual work plan and reporting of what's been accomplished. And one of the advantages is if you're going to be working on the trail is there's reduced administration and overhead to conduct the work as far as approvals go. As a designated trail manager, written into legislation, there's a number of things that you don't need to go and get additional permission for that. But like I say, it's the we build it, you maintain it primarily, but we do support with grants. And grants tend to be year to year because of the provincial budget, if there's grant funding available. So to talk about that a bit more, what we started with in our grant program is for the first couple of years, it was an open application process because we didn't have many designated trails. We didn't know where the user groups were. We didn't know where the trails were. So we had folks coming to us. Now we have quite a few designated trails. We have a number of designated trail managers, and of course we have a fixed plot. Previously, a maximum of 40 to 50% of the applicants for trails granting were successful. And now we've moved to a model that to receive grant funding, to be eligible for grant funding, you need to be a designated trail manager, working on a designated trail, which was always the long-term intent. Once we had enough of those, built, right, and folks signed up. But what that does mean is that if you are a designated trail manager and there are grants, you get a slice of the pie automatically. You don't need to apply, right? And it's based on the number of kilometers of trail you have, and there's a couple of metrics like that, right? So you would automatically, get funding based on sort of the magnitude and complexity of the trail system.
Okay,
If there's a grant in that year available.
if there's a grant. So just to clarify for me, ongoing things like perhaps adding gravel, that sort of thing would be built into that budget that the municipality wouldn't necessarily have to budget for. That would be an automatic fund transfer.
So it would be the tear line is between capital and operational typically, right? So if it's something that's a capital repair or upgrade, that would be something we would do. If it's operational, that would be something that typically the trail manager is asked to do. Although we do support, so we are flexible, and we have provided some operational support to various trail managers too. It's a little bit sort of site dependent. We're trying to build the capacity of our trail managers at the same time. So a lot of the trail managers are small groups that only get out on the weekends to do things, only have a few members. And there are some that are doing great work that they don't want to become trail managers. There's overhead, there's insurance, there's signing papers, it's just too much. They just want to go out on the weekend and do something. One of the things that I've been floating with the various councils that we meet with is there's also another option, and that is a council. A municipality could be the administrator, could be the sign trail manager and the administrator that would support a few of these small groups, right? So you have the built-in safety plans, you have the insurance already, you have all those things, and they could do the work and essentially report to you, and then you report, to the government, right? And we find that a lot on trails that are, you've got a cross-country ski group, they've got 15 kilometers of trail, they don't really want to become a trail manager, but the municipality is quite interested in making sure that's successful. And you've got a mountain bike group that might be interested in using those trails in summer, but they're also a small group, right? So if you have a municipality that is essentially providing that umbrella support by becoming the trail manager, then everybody wins, right?
Sure. And the second question I had was, assuming we find the time capsule, that'll be an interesting experience to open that up. I wonder if, do people do time capsules anymore? Could you open up, have a look, and then add some things from 2026?
I think that's what we're trying to do. That's exactly what we would then take whatever is there, and hopefully it is there, and then have, not necessarily the same day, but maybe another time, get to the school kids and everyone else, and everyone puts in something, and we seal it. We have a mason sort of on standby that we're going to be doing it. Hopefully before we have the grand opening, we will have had a look to make sure that there is a time capsule there. And then we will seal it up so that a dignitary can easily open it.
Like pulling the sword out of the stone?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but certainly, that's another intriguing component of it that keeps that, that whole thing alive, right? That legacy of that alive.
Sure. Thank you.
Councilor St. Martin, then Councilor McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, through the delegation. Thank you, this is wonderful and great to see. I guess I have a question. You did report that there'll be a separate trail for ATVs. So what will be done to prohibit ATVs from going onto the walking trail? Is there rocks placed or something so that they can't get in there, or?
We can do that. I mean, James, do you wanna speak to that, or do you want me to?
Well, what I can say is that now that the trail management plan is completed, we'll be putting together the infrastructure plan. And so that'll know all the type of infrastructure that go with it. So if we're worried about that type of issue, we could put something as simple as bollards at the very front entrances of the walkway to prevent any void trees from getting in there. The goal with that would need to be though that these bollards would have to be removable, so that say yourself or the partners who are gonna maintain it, if you needed to bring, say, a side-by-side down there with a bunch of gravel, you could still access it yourself. And we've used bollards like that in the parks, metal bollards. That's one way we could limit it.
We can't do enforcement on designated trails, and that's one of the big things where previously there was no legislation unless you caught somebody in the act of blatantly destroying a watercourse crossing. There was very little, it was public land. You could do pretty much anything anywhere as a member of the public on public land there, on those trails. But now we can do enforcement because they're designated trails, they're protected, and as I mentioned, they have certain rules on them. So part of the role of a trail manager would be also not to do enforcement, but if you have enforcement issues, you can call directly to the to the reporting line. You would call 310 Lands, they would dispatch a conservation officer to go and do enforcement.
Or even call us, and we have connections with our group, obviously, and we can facilitate something.
So there's enforcement backup, which there never was.
Gonna follow up, Ed?
Yeah, Mr. Reeve, through to the delegation, just a second question, I guess. What did I have? I appreciate you talking about Woodlands becoming the trail manager for subsidiary groups. I do volunteer for a local horse club, so that would be interesting to look into that as well. Thirdly, in the agreement, I notice it makes reference to society. How does that fit in with the municipality?
I think to be a nonprofit society, I'd have to look. I don't think there's any issue with that. Municipalities are eligible to sign trail agreements.
We have numerous municipalities already signed up, so that must be okay somehow.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McNeil.
Thank you, through the Reeve. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have not been there yet and very much look forward to getting there this spring. My questions are in regards to wondering what's the expected lifespan of the boardwalks and so on currently?
Well, I can talk for a little bit on that. These boardwalks were first designed, actually I designed them for Lakeland Provincial Park. I don't know if you know where that is, down by Lac La Biche. And until they were taken out just this winter, which was this unfortunate thing, they had been in stock for about 25 years without any issue on it at all. The only thing on the larger boardwalks to make them even longer is that in the fall, if a guy were to take the leaves off with a blower, just walk along and just so that way you don't get the leaves and the wetness. Yeah, and that's all. But I mean, you're looking at 20-25 years, pretty well guaranteed. Now the other one, the light duty, we haven't really had any issues at all. Again, for the same amount of time. Remember that they're encapsulated into 2 geocloths that actually allow them to be drier than they were when on the ground, so the water can infiltrate out and maybe not and stop bacterial action. The materials we used are pressure treated, but they are pressure treated and agreed to by Parks Canada and the Alberta Parks and ourselves. They're legal to be put into wet areas.
Yeah, I don't know if we used the inside, like you use this called permanent wood foundation. Those are actually guaranteed to have 50-year ground contact lifespans.
So just as a follow-up to that, I guess kind of a two-part question. What insights do you have on the cost of maintenance? What insights, if any, do you have on what it would cost us to maintain the site for the washrooms and stuff that are currently there and the trails per year? And then I guess, what was the cost of you guys building the trail system the way that you did?
Can answer the
I
cost.
can give you the cost. We're looking at the entire trail system, okay, from start to go, came in around, I'm just guessing, I think it was 180, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think it was 180, wasn't it?
Yeah, around that, yeah.
180, somewhere like that. But that's everything, everything, you know, right from the first bolt, you know.
Just for
yeah.
the walking.
Just for the walking trail.
Just
Yeah,
walking.
yeah. And the outhouse thing, well, there's a frequency on outhouse cleaning, right? It's no different than I'm sure that your park system has here, although you have to remember that that outhouse in the back country will not be used as heavily as the one in the front country at the staging area, because highway people stop there, right? So, you know, you may, in the, on the front country staging area, you're probably gonna be looking at least once a week, maybe twice a week, to at least check the toilet paper, do everything. The one in the back country, I don't know, once every week, every 2 weeks.
Now, we can't really give you a cost, we can give you the expectations for,
Yeah.
you know, and also it's difficult to say how much usage we're gonna get. Usage was pretty low before, cause the trail was terrible. I can imagine now usage is gonna increase, and I would imagine if we have the grand reopening and there's media there and people find out about it, and there's just Karen and all that great stuff, there could be quite a bit more usage, you know, so it's hard to say.
Thank you.
And just on the use, if I, or did, again, outhouses and stuff through to administration, I mean, we do take care of a couple lakes and some of our sites around there. I'm assuming procedurally it'd be easy enough to just make that in a, you know, kind of a loop if we're in the one area. Councillor Whitten?
So you're through the reef, the outhouses are open there now?
The one in the staging area is, the one in the backcountry, not so much, because by the time we got it there, the ground was froze. But we will be doing that, it will be operational before the end of April, early May, first week of May.
Cause I know there's a lot of snowmobilers that are using that trail right now. Cause I go to work by there every day and there are trucks that are unloaded there and there are snowmobile tracks going in and out of there constantly. Every weekend there's vehicles parked there that are using that trail right now.
That's
So,
a good point, so if you're a trail manager, you wanna decide if you're gonna have it as a summer seasonal walking trail, as far as outhouse maintenance goes, or if it's going to be a year-round trail that requires outhouse maintenance. I mean, but we do have quite a few areas where, you know, we close the outhouses during winter. We don't have anybody to maintain them, right?
well, that's what, I'm just letting you know that you probably get some surprises.
There you go.
I guess following Councillor Whitman's comment, you have a question, I guess. If we do have, say, wintertime usage, you have snowmobiles and stuff utilizing that, how does that impact the longevity of the boardwalks that are in there?
It doesn't hurt at all,
Okay.
isn't that thing? But remember that there is also an outhouse on the old ATV trail that was in there, all right? There's one on the back country, so if someone is, if we get this trail designated saying, hey, please motorized users over here, a lot of times it's not malicious use, it's ignorant use, right? They don't know. So we build that trail up and James plans it correctly and does it right, we will have skidoos using that, and there's a far outhouse just 300 meters from the cairn to the north, north, east, west.
Yeah, I mean, the motorized trail, the municipality could decide to be trail manager just for the non-motorized trails, or could include the motorized trails as well. Because we do have motorized trail groups that are trail managers now that could take on the motorized component. You know, or if you wanna do the entire, you know, because those motorized trails, unless they're part of a bigger network, I'm sure, right? It's not just a dead end.
Councillor Whitten?
I through the reef, for the maintenance of this, the county would need to have side by side go in and out of there all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're going in to clean the outhouse at the center of Alberta, they would need to take a side-by-side in there every time because they would need to have your garbage bags, they would have to haul garbage out, like, I mean, and realistically, it would be a lot safer for them as well, because possibly there's gonna be one or two people that are going to be doing this, right? So,
The trail is built for that, for the maintenance side of it. As long as we don't, as your staff, don't, break traction too often with it, those boardwalks will handle a truck.
I was just talking about the removal of the barriers for the other ATV
Yeah.
users that are going to try and use the trail, because we know already that it's gonna happen, because it just, people have no conscience anymore. It's,
The way that we used to do it, and I don't know if it's still done in the system, but again, I talk back from when I was in the Park Service, is that the bollards are basically on a flat plate that has a hinge, and there's just a lock, and you unlock it, and the bollard, you just push it over, and then you drive over. However, noticing that if I have an ATV or at least a quad, I can then sometimes wriggle around if I want to be that kind of a person. But normally that's not the case, yeah.
The other thing I can add to that is that we are building a motorized portion of this trail to access the cairn. So there would only be a small window of time where that trail isn't designated. That being said, the trail still exists. You can still drive a quad to the center and not take the walking portion, but of course for maintenance, it would be slightly different.
Yeah, it's much faster to use that trail for maintenance.
okay, so that's good to know. So then our staff can use the ATV trail
In
to
theory,
get there instead of trying to go down the boardwalk.
and to access the toilet at the cairn, you wouldn't have to go down the walking trail
That's
whatsoever.
good,
You
that's
just use
what
the
I'm
ATV
saying,
trail to access
that's
it.
fantastic news.
Yeah.
But for the first year or so, until we get that trail
Yeah.
built, you may want to use that one,
Yes.
Because just timing and just
Well,
make
it's
it
not
efficient.
only that, but you don't wanna destroy
Yeah.
everything else before you guys get there, so.
Councillor St. Martin?
Yeah, Mr. Reeve, through to council and administration, I guess. I believe municipal ATVs are exempt, so that they can, for maintenance purposes, use these trails.
I think it's in the trail management agreement. An exercise of the duties of the trail manager.
To administration, in our fleet of units that we have, would we, I know on the ag server, we approved a side-by-side, I know we do have some quad, is it something where we would have to expand on our fleet? Or do we have capacity within what we currently have?
I believe within the current budget, there is an ATV for ASB. Our working discussion is that we can share that between rec and ASB without requiring any additional beyond that replacement vehicle.
Councillor Dean and then Councillor Wright.
I'm looking at the recommended action that's within the RFD, and it's recommending that we receive the presentation. I don't see anything in terms of a next step, so I'm wondering if there's an appetite by council to have a second motion or add to this to have administration work with the authorities to come back on an agreement, or so I guess I'm asking administration what you recommend for that.
I see Mrs. Anderson's back there, I think she has. She looked like she had some input she'd like to,
Dave, I'm not gonna sit where you can see me.
you're our in-house expert, I would.
If was going to come to another meeting, sorry, through the chair to administrate, or to Councillor Dean, it is coming to another meeting. We wanted to have that more of a separate, so we could go over it, prepare where we're at, what our plans are, to give you more of a fuller.
Okay, so that's in progress, we don't need a separate motion for that to happen.
I don't know what the CAO feels.
No, it's through the chair. As far as I'm concerned, we're working on it. We wanted to take the information they received.
Okay.
And before we drafted a formal plan, we wanted to see if at least there was an openness.
Okay.
But we'll bring you back the costs and the analysis that we've conducted to see whether it's feasible or not.
Councillor Wright?
Through the chair, I'm gonna steer away a little bit, go off course. So within the county, we do have these two areas. They're labeled more as like sand hills, sand pit areas that ATVs do use as riding trails, but they have become like really horrible dumping sites. if this was something that council was to bring up and discuss to try to clean these up, and would you guys be the ones that we would reach out to maybe get something like this started to then become trail
we would,
managers for?
Yeah, and in fact, we're doing planning in a number of areas,
Well, like Court said, help those.
yeah.
And we also have a program in play that if it's on public lands and it's recreational oriented garbage or something of that nature. And we do have a cleanup thing, but there is some caveats on, we don't necessarily wanna clean up sites that are just dump sites, because maybe then there's an operational issue with the county as well as us. Maybe the dumps aren't open longer, maybe this isn't happening, so
Yeah.
we will be part of the solution, but we can't be the entire solution.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We got any final comments here before we make a motion to move to the motion? Seeing any, if somebody wants to make a motion, Councillor St. Martin.
I'll move that council receive the presentation from Mr. Raphael of Alberta Parks and Forestry regarding the Recreation, Education and Partnership Program, the Centre of Alberta Walking Trail Overview, and the obligations of becoming a trail manager for information. And I'd like to add, and direct administration to bring more information to council.
Councillor, discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? Again, thank you very much, I'm sure we are all looking forward to the event there this summer, so.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening.
10 minutes.
Yeah, I was just gonna take a look, we have nothing else in correspondence and administration, so that'll bring us to the closed session after. It's 10:35 here, we're gonna take a 10-minute, come back at 10:45, Councillor St. Martin?
Yeah, if we can recess that.
Yeah, that's,
11:35.
or sorry, 11:35.
Got Heather at the back there.
Oh, sorry, before we go though, yes, I know we have this, is Mrs. Anderson has a couple new staff members she would like to present to.
Thank you for indulging me, Reeve. Mayor and Council, or Reeve and Council, we have two new staff that I'd like to introduce to you. Lillian Weiser is our new Community Services Admin Assistant. And we also have Jen Gimlet, she's our new lead hand. She's we've got her like shoveling a lot of snow today. They started on the 2nd. So I just wanted to introduce you to council. This is they've really added to our team, and you already know Tegan. I want to give a shout out to our existing community services admin too. So these are new members of our team.
Well, nice to have you on board, and we'll look forward to working with you. So with it, we'll take, we'll say 10, just about 22, 11:40, sorry, 11:50, we'll be back at 11:50.
It's really snowing out there.
We